Chapter 15, My Dogs Smell Meat. Remember in chapter 14, Anna Maria takes a picnic basket with some food in it and is pretending to go deliver lunch, but she's got the packet that Mr. Rosen dropped. She's almost there. She goes through the dark forest, remembers everything, and then suddenly as she turns a corner, there are 4 guards with guns and some dogs. My Dogs Smell Meat, chapter 15. Anna Maria's mind raced. She remembered what her mother had said. If anyone stops you, you must pretend to be nothing more than a silly little girl. She stared at the soldiers. She remembered how she had stared at the others, frightened when they had stopped her on the street. Kirsty hadn't been frightened. Kirsty had been, well, nothing more than a silly little girl, angered because the soldier had touched her hair that afternoon. She had known nothing of danger, and the soldier had been amused by her, found it funny. Anna Maria willed herself, with all her being, to behave as Kirsty would. "Good morning," she said carefully to the soldiers. They looked her up and down in silence. Both dogs were tense and alert. The 2 dogs who held the leashes wore thick gloves. "What are you doing here?" one of them asked. Anna Maria held out her basket with a thick loaf of bread visible. "My Uncle Henrik forgot his lunch, and I'm taking it to him. He's a fisherman." The soldiers were looking around, their eyes glanced behind her and scanned the bushes on either side. "Are you alone?" one asked. Anna Maria nodded. "Yes," she said. One of the dogs growled, but she noticed that both dogs were looking at the lunch basket. One soldier stepped forward. The other and the 2 holding the dogs remained where they were. "You came out before daybreak just to bring a lunch? Why doesn't your uncle eat fish?" What would Kirsty reply? Anna Maria tried to giggle the way her sister might. "Uncle Henrik doesn't even like fish," she said, laughing. "He says he sees way too much of it and smells too much of it. Anyway, he wouldn't eat it raw." She made a face. "Well, I suppose if he was starving, but Uncle Henrik has had bread and cheese for lunch." "Keep chattering," she told herself, as Kirsty would. A silly little girl. "I like fish," she went on. "I like it the way my mother cooks it. Sometimes she rolls it in breadcrumbs, and—" The soldier reached forward and grabbed the crisp loaf of bread from the basket. He examined it carefully, then broke it in half, pulling the 2 halves apart with his fists. That would enrage Kirsty, she knew. "Don't!" she said angrily. "That's Uncle Henrik's bread. My mother baked it." The soldier ignored her. He tossed the 2 halves of loaf to the ground, 1 half in each of the dog. They consumed it, they ate it, each snapping the bread and gulping it so that it was gone in an instant, quickly. "Have you seen anyone in the woods?" The soldiers barked the questions at her. "No, only you." Anna Marie stared at him. "What are you doing in the woods anyway? You're making me late. Uncle Henrik's boat will leave before I get there with his lunch. Or what's left of his lunch." The soldier picked up the wedge of cheese. He turned it over in his hand. He turned to the 3 behind him and asked them something in their own language. One of them answered, "Nein," in a bored tone. Anna Marie recognized the word. The man had replied, "No," in German. He had probably been asked, Anna Marie thought, "Do you want this?" Or perhaps, "Should I give this to the dogs?" The soldier continued to hold the cheese. He tossed it back and forth between his hands. Anna Marie gave an exasperated sigh. "Could I go now, please?" she asked impatiently. The soldier reached for the apple. He noted its brown spots and made a face of disgust. "No meat?" he asked, glancing at the basket and the napkin that lay in its bottom. Anna Maria gave him a withering, scared look. "You know we have no meat," she said insolently. "Your army eats all of Denmark's meat." "Please, please," she implored in her mind, "don't lift the napkin." The soldier laughed. He dropped the bruised apple on the ground, and one of the dogs leaned forward, pulling at his leash, sniffed the apple and stepped back. But both dogs still looked intently at the basket, their ears alert, their mouths open. Saliva glistened on their smooth, pink gums. "My dogs smell meat," the soldier said. "They smell squirrels in the woods," Anna Maria responded. "You should take them hunting." The soldier reached forward with the cheese in one hand as if he were going to return it to the basket. But he didn't. Instead, he pulled out the flowered cotton napkin, the thing that's covering the packet. Anna Maria froze. Your uncle has a pretty little lunch, the soldier said scornfully, crumpling the napkin around the cheese in his hand. Like a woman, he added with contempt. Then his eyes locked on the basket. He handed the cheese and napkin to the soldier beside him, next to him. What's that, there in the bottom? He asked in a different, tenser voice. What would Kirsty do? Anna Maria stamped her foot. Suddenly, to her own surprise, she began to cry. I don't know, she said, her voice choked. My mother's going to be angry that you stopped me and made me late, and you've completely ruined Uncle Henrik's lunch, so now he'll be mad at me too. The dogs whined and struggled against the leashes, the rope that holds the dog, nosing forward towards the basket. One of the soldiers muttered something in German. The soldier took out the packet. Why was this so carefully hidden? He snapped. Anna Maria's wiped her eyes on the sleeve of her sweater. It wasn't hidden any more than the napkin was. I don't know what it is. That, she realized, was true. She had no idea what was in the packet. The soldier tore the paper open while below him, on the ground, the dogs strained and snarled, pulling at their leashes. Their muscles were visible beneath the sleek, short-haired, strong dogs. He looked inside, then glared at Anna Maria. Stop crying, you idiot girl, he said harshly. Your stupid mother has sent your uncle a handkerchief. In Germany, the women have better things to do. They don't stay at home sewing handkerchiefs for their men. He gestured with the folded white cloth and gave a short, caustic laugh. At least she didn't stitch flowers on it. He threw it and flung it to the ground, still half wrapped in the paper beside the apple. The dogs lunged, sniffed at it eagerly, then subsided, disappointed again. Go on, the soldier said. He dropped the cheese and the napkin back in the basket. Go on to your uncle and tell him the German dogs enjoyed his bread. All of the soldiers pushed past her. One of them laughed, and they spoke to each other in their own language. In a moment, they had disappeared down the path in the direction from which Anna Maria had just come. Quickly, she picked up the apple and opened the packet with the white handkerchief inside. She put them into the basket and ran around the bend, the corner, toward the harbour, where the morning sky was now bright with early sun, and some of the boat engines were starting their strident din, so that the noise of the engines. The inboard was still there, by the dock, and Uncle Henrik was there, his light hair wind-blown and bright as he knelt by the nets to catch fish. Anna Maria called to him, and he came to his side, his face worried when he recognized her on the dock. She handed the basket across. Mama sent your lunch, she said, her voice quavering, shaking. But soldiers stopped me, and they took your bread. She didn't dare tell him any more. Henrik glanced into the basket. She could see the look of relief, of happiness on his face, and knew that it was because he saw that the packet was there, even though it was open. Thank you, he said, with the relief was evident. You could see how happy he was in his voice. Anna Maria looked quickly around the familiar small boat. She could see down the passageway into the empty cabin. There were no sign of the Rosens or others. Uncle Henrik followed her eyes and her puzzled, confused face or look. All is well, he said softly. Don't worry, everything is all right. I wasn't sure, he said, but now, he eyed the basket in his hands, because of you, Anna Maria, everything is all right. You run home now and tell your mama not to worry. I will see you this evening. He grinned at her suddenly. They took my bread, huh? He said. I hope they choke on it. Wow. So Anna Maria gets searched by the German soldiers. They take the bread, the apple, the cheese, and they open the packet. For some reason, they don't like what's in the packet, and they let her go. She returns to Uncle Henrik, and he's very happy she brought the packet. That's the end.